Welcome to part 3 of my NixOS series. This looks quite different to where we last left off. Allow me to catch you up. In the last video I have linked the Git repository for my Nix configuration, which I have been tending to ever since. And I think the easiest way to show you what I have been doing is to just go through the different Git diffs. For example, the first Git diff I did was this one, where I disabled the NVIDIA open source kernel drivers. This step fixed my GPU issues I mentioned at the end of the last video. Now OBS can do hardware encoding using my GPU, and also Blender, my 3D software, can use the GPU to render out ray traced renders. The next thing I did cannot really be shown in a Git diff because I just watched a YouTube video about Nix. In particular, I watched this excellent video by Surma, where he explains the Nix operating system from the ground up. What is also included is a short lesson on the Nix language itself. I didn't know how to read Nix before, but now I do, and it greatly helped me understand how to configure my own setup. The next thing I added to my configuration was the use of Home Manager. Home Manager allows to configure the user environment using the same tools we have available for configuring the NixOS system itself. This means that we can set user preferences declaratively. I have also opted to use Home Manager as a NixOS module instead of a standalone program. This means that I can only change user settings by doing a full system rebuild, but it has the advantage that I only need to run one command to fully update my system configuration. I don't know what other implication using a submodule instead of its own package may have in the future, but for now that's what I'm rolling with. The first program I started managing with Home Manager was my ZSH, which is done by just this code. And I don't really know what else to say about this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory what each of these lines do. One important thing with Home Manager is that you need to enable this backup file extension. Otherwise, Home Manager will complain if there already is a configuration in place. So if you previously managed your programs the normal way with the .config folder, then you would get an error message every time you added a new program to Home Manager. With this, I think it takes a backup of the current configuration and replaces it with the auto-generated configuration from the Nix configuration file. The next program I added to Home Manager was Hyperland. And instead of setting every option within the Nix language, I just import my existing Hyperland configuration. I had to move the Hyperland configuration out of the home directory, which feels a bit weird, but I guess that's how this works now. Next, I tried to set the mouse cursor. I wanted to use Bibata Modern Eyes, so I added it both to the Hyperland configuration as well as the Home Manager configuration, and also adding the theme as a session variable. As you can see, these are settings used by a desperate man, because I tried to get the cursor working on Firefox, but none of these options did the magic. So frustrated with the mouse pointer, I decided to try a different browser, in this case Vivaldi, which looks like this. And with Vivaldi, my mouse cursor was actually working as intended. The problems with Firefox clearly showed me that I have a skill issue. Luckily, there are crutches for people like me. One of these is called Stylix. Stylix promises to set the color theme of every application that you manage through Home Manager automatically. So basically, with just a rebuild of the system, you can change the entire theming of the system. This sounds very nice, and I think since there are people working on this that are a lot smarter than me, this might also fix my Firefox issue. What you see here now is the git diff of the flake.nix, so you have to add it to the flake to have Stylix available in the configuration. In the configuration itself, I first added Kitty and Wofi to the programs managed by Home Manager. I didn't set any other settings, I just added them to Home Manager itself. I also removed my attempt to change the cursor within Home Manager. Then there is this Stylix block, in which I first say that I want to use it, secondly what kind of wallpaper I want. Here I tell Stylix which kind of base 16 scheme I want to use. In my case I opted for Graphbox Dark Heart, as I think this is the most popular color scheme among Linux users and I wanna retain a lot of my viewers. Then I set the font I would like to be used, as well as the font size for the terminal. And finally down here I said which kind of cursor should be used. And after building this configuration, the Bibata Modern Eyes cursor also worked for Firefox. So I don't know what kind of magic Stylix is working behind the scenes, but it's working and I'm once again very impressed. I then added another program called Logseek, which is just a program to manage nodes. It's basically a knowledge base. One thing to note about Logseek is that the current version is using an outdated version of Electron, so you have to kind of patch it yourself. The NixOS wiki explains very nicely how to do this. It's just replacing the outdated Electron version with a newer version and then installing this patched version to the system. Some people tested it and it seems to work, so that's what I did as well. And then the final thing I did before this video was to also enable GTK to be targeted by Stylix. So this enabled Stylix to also style, for example, my file manager, which is Tunar. And just to show you how changing the color scheme looks like, I'm gonna change from Graphbox to, let's say, Everforest. The scheme goes by Everforest Dark Heart. Yeah, you need to look at the base 16 schemes Git repository to see how exactly your favorite scheme is called in there. In my case, this is the name for Everforest. Then updating the system or rebuilding the system. You can see that Kitty changes immediately. Tuna is still in the old color scheme. But once all instances of Tuna are closed, the new instances will have the theming applied. So this was quite painless. Things that are not yet managed by Stylix is, for example, the hyper panel, so my bar, as well as Firefox, VS Codium and Logseek. I'm gonna look into how to do that, but at the moment it just changes GTK apps and the terminal, which is honestly where I spend most of my time anyway. In the future, I would also like to be able to automatically change the wallpaper depending on the color scheme that I set in Stylix. Ideally, it would be just the same wallpaper, but with a different color scheme applied to it. To make progress toward that goal, I wrote a small Python script that takes as inputs wallpapers that I like, and then it converts these wallpapers to all possible base 16 schemes that I may like in the future or may never like, but I included them anyway because why not? And to have an overview over how every wallpaper looks with every color scheme applied, I built this small website which is basically just a gallery, so nothing fancy. It's also not the most beautiful, but I am not a web developer, so please excuse this. While I scroll through this, you may notice that the recoloring doesn't work perfectly every time. I'm definitely planning to fix this in a future version, but for now it's fine for me. I really like this starry sky background, which I'm also rocking right now, as you can see. So yeah, I would like to just change automatically between the different colored versions of the same wallpaper in the future. I have no idea how to do that yet, but I think it should be possible. If you are interested in this wallpaper recoloring program that I wrote, I could also make a video about that in the future. What you have seen so far was the past. Now we are back in the present. And in the present I want to work a bit more on my Stylix configuration. In particular, what I found in the tips and tricks section of the Stylix website was that you can dynamically generate wallpapers depending on the selected theme. If this does what I think it does, then it makes all my previous work on the recoloring script a moot point. On the other hand, with Stylix, it would be very well integrated into the existing NixOS infrastructure. So in total, I would think it would be quite cool. So let's investigate. So apparently this code block does take care of automatically recoloring the image according to the theme you choose. I know I said that I learned to read Nix, but honestly I'm a bit stumped by this code, so I don't really understand it. But if they say that it will work, then I guess it will work. A bit further below, they say that all this mess is apparently packaged in a function lib.stylix.pixel. But the way they use it here also doesn't make much sense to me, because I don't really understand how do I pass the actual picture that I want to recolor into this. Okay, I have to experiment a bit, so see you. So apparently the second block they give here just generates a wallpaper that is a single solid color taken out of the palette that you choose. In this example they choose the base 0A color as the background color. This is not what I'm after, so I'm just gonna try this code and see what it does. Alright, I implemented the code as I understood it. Let's see if it works. That's a lot of red. But I have the strong suspicion that this code we give here also just generates a solid color wallpaper, which is not what I want. So I have to engineer my own solution anyway. And that seems to work after a reboot. Let's look at the changes that I made. Basically in the starting section of the config, I declared three, I don't know the proper name in Nix. Let's say I declared three variables. One is the theme name. In my case this is Everforest Dark Hard. And then I use this theme name to first set the theme itself to one of the base 16 schemes that are available in this package. Then I also use the theme name to generate a link to the recolored wallpaper of Starry Sky. In principle, I could also make Starry Sky a further variable if I ever want to change the wallpaper itself and not just the recoloration. And then down in the Stylix configuration, I just set the image to the wallpaper and the base 16 scheme to the theme. Then what I had to do is copy all these wallpapers in the etc NixOS folder. And honestly, I don't know if it was a good idea or if there's any better way to do this. It's just that this wallpaper folder is around 1 GB of storage space. And I don't know if it would be better to have the images stored somewhere else, but from experience, I already anticipated that NixOS wouldn't like it if the images were stored in the home directory. So that's what I'm gonna do for now. Let me know if this is a very bad mistake. And let me just try one more time, changing from Everforest now to Graphbox. So it seems the wallpaper doesn't get changed immediately. Once again, this works after a reboot. This is not ideal, but at least it's kind of working already. I wonder if it will work better if I enable Hyperland as a target. I see, this is a home manager option and not a Stylix option. So let's see if I can figure this out. Okay, that seems to work, or at least it doesn't throw an error. But of course I didn't change the color theme. So let me try that again. Okay, this also doesn't change the wallpaper. Anyways, it's not so important. I will just be back once I figure it out. After some tinkering, I still haven't figured it out. But at least now I only need to log out and log in again for the wallpaper to change. What I did is to add Hyperpaper to my system packages, to Home Manager, and also as a target for Stylix. And that at least improved the dynamic wallpaper situation. If you have any tips on how to improve this and make Stylix or NixOS change the wallpaper in real time, I would appreciate it. The final thing I want to do for this video is manage Firefox with NixOS and Home Manager. Apparently it should be as simple as just enabling Firefox within the Home Manager configuration. Okay, I know it doesn't look like much, but Firefox is now set up using NixOS itself. So let's dive into what I had to do to get this working. First you need to edit your flake.nix, and you need to add a new flake, which is called Firefox add-ons. Then, as usual, you add Firefox add-ons to these inputs here, and that's everything you have to do in the flake.nix. Then in the configuration.nix, I needed to add inputs to the inputs of the configuration, I guess. And down below here, I have my Firefox configuration in the Home Manager config. I don't know if it is necessary or if this code block can also just be outside. Yeah, I'm still a bit confused about some details of this process. But anyway, I enable Firefox, I set up my profile, and I add some extensions, and that's basically what I need for now. All in all, I'm pretty happy with NixOS. I can configure most things, and if I can't, there's always a helpful Reddit or forum post that describes exactly how to do something. I have a feeling I may be doing a few things wrong, but I will figure it out eventually. With that said, thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video. Bye!